Chamber has a 100% pick rate on Fracture in NAVCT. Learning to play him like a pro will give you the edge in ranked. Chamber is required because of his ability to maintain control across Fracture's chaotic mid-rounds. To play Chamber like a pro on Fracture, you need to focus on consistently placing good trademarks, carefully picking engagements with your Rendezvous, and most importantly, remaining unpredictable. Hi everyone, Bugsy the Bean here to give you my stats and analysis of how professional players play Chamber on Fracture. Consistent setups are at the core of high-level Chamber play on Fracture. As I'm sure you've all experienced in Ranked, Fracture's layout allows for faster, less predictable flanks than on any other map. And this is where Chamber comes in. His pivotal role on Fracture is maintaining faux map presence in the form of trips. Let's start by looking at how attackers utilize Chamber's alarm bots to secure flanks and allow for mid-round rotates. Looking at data from some VCT matches, we see that pro Chambers tend to put their attack trademarks tree, bench, spawn, or rock. Furthermore, with few exceptions, we almost always see tree and bench in combination, or spawn and rock. The variation you choose each round should depend on which site you are likely to hit. There are a few reasons for this. Firstly, if you do say tree and rock, in principle, enemies can still flank A main, which there's no reason to allow. On the flank watch, enemies are far more likely to trip your tree alarm bot when flanking A versus flanking B. This same concept applies for all 4 attacker trips. More importantly though, putting your trips further towards the opposite side of the map maintains far more map control and excludes defenders from more aggressive corners should your team need to rotate out. A more avant-garde tactic that I only saw Rise do that I think is worth mentioning is taking control on defaults specifically to get aggressive attacker alarm bots placed. A good example of this is how they often put 2 players to take early A main control just to place a trap that prevents a mid-round Viper info play. This same concept can be applied across the map again, and I hope to begin to see more Chambers do this. Moving to defense, the Chamber meta around trademarks is still defined, although far less strictly. They generally serve the purpose of alerting defenders to an imminent take, in the case of deeper trips, or slowing down takes by monitoring the main choke points to a site. From most to least used, defenders place their trips in drop, B main, A main, box, arcade push. There were also many one-off trips, a trend that we did not see on attack. Let's take a look at some of the most common ones. By far the most common, and placed nearly every round, was this drop trip. This trip is important because drop players can peek many angles that defenders may otherwise assume to be safe. This trip alerts defenders as to when they may need to switch up their positioning to account for a pushed attacker in drop. Sticking with A site, this box trip serves as a canary for when attackers are about to execute onto the site. Getting A main control early is often a focus of attackers, and when you are not contesting it, this trip can be useful to have because it lets you know if the A main control is simply a default or an exec. It often serves as an alert for defenders to start using their utility as well, as for example, it allows Viper to save mollies for later in rounds. Moving to the B side, this alarm bot serves a similar purpose to the previous. It allows arcade to be ignored until it gets tripped. Moving to the site proper, these 2 trademarks are geared towards slowing down takes. They force the entry fragger to either stare in one direction, at the ground, making them vulnerable to peeks while they do, or to ignore it, which may allow them to get by, but will hugely slow down their team and make them entering alone. Now, let's take a look at Chamber's only other true ability, Rendezvous. Originally, I wanted to carefully record each spot I see it used in pro play, as I normally do. However, I quickly realized that doing so fundamentally contradicts the purpose of this ability when my data was a mess. I think that using Chamber's Rendezvous optimally is all about maximizing your unpredictability. It allows you to take aggressive peeks with the ability to disengage, it allows you to play one-and-done spots without punish, and it allows you to navigate to off angles. By changing your setup round to round based on your reads, if the enemy saw your setup and your artillery, you should find yourself getting a free kill and swiftly retreating to safety. To better understand this concept, look at how I got countless opening frags on this split game. Notice how every opening kill I get is at a different angle and on a different area of the map. This forces the attackers to spend more utility everywhere across the map just to take opening engagements. Playing Chamber well on Fracture is important, but what's probably more pertinent to most of you, given that there are only 2 chambers in each game, is how you should counter him. A chamber that plays along the lines that I've just set up, especially if they are crushing hard, can be exceedingly frustrating to play against. To prevent an opposing chamber from dominating a lobby, you have to religiously deal with his trademarks and try your best to use utility to force his TP out rather than doing it by peeking him. Remember, in TAC FPS games, consistent info is often still a lack of info. What I mean by this is that if you make sure to default a player to drop and break Chamber's trip on most rounds before you decide which site you're going to hit, you greatly decrease the information that it gathers. Furthermore, the Chamber will eventually start deciding on more passive trips, which provides the defense with less info out of the gate on every single round. Secondly, forcing Chamber's TP out with util, if possible, is basically always worth it. His TPs are generally a one-way door that can be used to get out of a situation. But as soon as they decide the pressure's too much, it's almost always too dangerous to take the TP back. You expend their ability. Lastly, I wanted to quickly mention the ability to smoke his trips, although I assume everyone knows about this. The one extra thing that I will throw in is that it's really only viable with Astra on attack due to the relative quietness of her smoke, and Jet and Viper as well on defense if you think your flank is out of audio range. But this is still somewhat of a risky decision, as if you are not out of audio range, you will be peeking into a disadvantage. It is almost always just better to shoot the trip and back up, forcing attackers to spend util re-clearing an area. I know it's been a while since I posted last, so I wanted to thank you all for getting me monetized. That's a big milestone I didn't expect to hit when I first created this channel. I want to let you know also that my Crosshair code is in the description, as I get a lot of comments about it. Finally, thank you all for watching until the end. See you in the next one. Pog!
Attackers win.